Our national shame is continuing because Donald Trump's supporters in and out of government are praising him for being a bully to another world leader whose country is under siege by a dictator that they support. And just to be clear, that dictator, despite what Donald Trump said, is Vladimir Putin. But all this time, I've been seeing messages and videos about Donald Trump supporters regretting the fact that they voted for him. And for the most part, I should say, I've said, you made your bed by voting for this bastard Trump, and you could die in it. But I have a better response, a more elegant response. That response is from John Pavlovitz. He wrote this article, "We could have had a president right now." It resurfaces whenever there is a national tragedy or a global crisis or a natural disaster or a moment of consequence. Whenever compassion, decency, strength, or goodness are required from a president. Whenever an actual human leader will be called upon and compelled to actually lead this nation. In those moments, our petulant, amoral, intellectually stunned, emotional fetal White House squatter sits, unable to express coherent thoughts, unwilling to be decent, incapable of basic human empathy, and morally allergic to nobility. This is what we get in our times of greatest need now here in America. A narcissistic man-child whose complete lack of competence and preparedness rears his repugnant head in the very moments that require a steady hand, a clear voice, and a calming presence. When we require unity, he brings division. When we need reason, he provides conspiracies. When we crave calm, he feeds us chaos. When we seek clarity, he muddies the waters. When we look for selflessness, he looks for praise. When we need elegance, he offers verbal diarrhea and spelling errors. When we deserve truthful fine print, he manufactures bold type fake headlines. It could have been so easily been different for all of us. We could have had a human president now. You could have had someone capable of critical thinking, the ability to understand complex problems, the stable temperament to lead us through challenging times. We could have had a president who didn't seek the presidency as a way to avoid prosecution or to pillage our entire nation because they were beholden to a murderous dictator. We could have had affordable health care, first-time home buyer credits, and small businesses assistance, instead of stratospheric grocery prices, massive medication costs, and tax breaks for the wealthy among us that they celebrate. We could have had a president who declared war on illiteracy and ignorance instead of having a war on the Department of Education. We could have been led by someone who went to bow for the most vulnerable and the most marginalized of us in this country, not to go to war against them. We could have been helmed by someone who realizes that diversity, equality, and inclusion are our highest collective aspirations, not the dire threats and national dangers or evils to be eradicated that Donald Trump and the rest of these clowns have already convinced us of. We could have had programs to feed the hungry and support the elderly and undergrind those on the margins, instead of seeing these things all wiped out without warning or sense. We could have had a presidential cabinet filled with experienced, educated, qualified adults instead of a ghoulish cadre of the unwell and incapable. We could have had a strong global partnerships that make the planet cleaner and safer instead of being alienated from our lifelong allies. We could have had a president who didn't allow an unelected South African soon-to-be trillionaire hijacked our government. And the person I'm talking about that we could have had, we should have had, is Kamala Harris. And all we need for this is to have a few thousand registered voters who actually gave a shit about this country to show up instead of opting out. Or to have a few thousand pro-Palestine voters who are too short-sighted that they cut off their nose to spite their face. And handed Gaza to a man we told you would eradicate it. Or maybe that's a few thousand supposed Christian conservatives who took their faith seriously enough not to vote for a 34-count felon and a court-adjudicated rapist. But since we didn't get that, we don't have a president right now. We don't have a leader. We don't even have an important figurehead. What we have now in the White House is an egomaniacal instigator who makes everything more cruel, more volatile, more painful than it could and should be. We have an empty husk of a man whose very presence in the place where he finds himself the greatest and most tragic joke of our lifetime. We have a predatorial leader who we will have to go to war with in order to save this country from the very fascism our grandparents and our great-grandparents and 500 million Americans died to fight against. We could have had a decent, rational human being leading us to the future of possibility where everyone could have a seat at the table. But now we don't. And I have no idea what you're going to do in response to this information. And on many days, I don't know either. All I know is this. It didn't have to be like this. It didn't have to be this way. John, thank you for your words. But whenever I hear a Donald Trump supporter, a person who voted for Trump in this election because they couldn't find in their soul to vote for a black woman, I say this whenever I hear those regrets. We warned you about this man for 8 straight years. We warned you while he was president and after he left office, especially after January 6th. And now, you're feeling remorse for it? Where the hell was that remorse when you decided either not to vote at all or to vote for Donald Trump? The fact of the matter is, you are just as responsible for the nightmare that's about to happen to this country because you didn't vote or you decided to throw your vote towards a man who wants a war all for the sake of his boss, Vladimir Putin. This is totally on you. And I really believe, and it's unfortunate me, and it's shameful for me to say this, and I hate saying it, but I think we're on the cusp of a civil war. Donald Trump is going to snap. Not because the pressure is getting to him, Not because things are getting bad while he is president, but because he is not worshipped enough as a god. The fact is this: you had the chance to end this madness, and you made the wrong choice. So while you're out there asking for forgiveness on TikTok or Twitter or elsewhere, you do not get any forgiveness from me or the real Americans who are suffering because you made the wrong choice. CTP, know the truth. God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.